Doing good. Now, y'all can see how when we get into these bright squirrelies, how people start getting engaged and be like, oh man, I can see myself here at 11 o'clock. But we ain't staying here till 11 o'clock. But trust me, people will stay here all day about cinnamon and
10:30 at
talk
this
this all
rate,
day.
but yeah.
Uh,
I said 10:30 maybe at this rate, but
yeah.
but we're getting into it, man. This is good.
There we go. All right, Jordan, we got you past B. All right. All right. So we went on ahead and we tested all of this out, see how everything worked, get us a better understanding what's going on. Let me get rid of this right here because you don't need that. And then we don't need this. And then we're gonna call it Give Me Your Name. What's your name? So now we got everything back to working. But so we learned a little lesson here. We learned how to do a conversion, right? And when to do the conversion, at what level, because that's the trick right there. And I hope you all remember that because later on you're going to need it. All right, here we go. We're going to get ready to go down to C. Seth, I'm going to call on you. You've been here for a minute. So Seth, read C for me.
C. Look for 221.1C. Underneath it, write a message to the console greeting the user using the name they just provided.
Okay, how would I write that?
So how I did it was I console log, parentheses, backtick, hello, and then used candidate name and the money sign and curly brackets.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so you did some string interpolation. That's the best way to do it. That's a lot less code to write. But you do it other ways. And right now in the beginning, we taught you out the archaic way, doing the parentheses and adding the concatenation plus sign, right? so that's simple, right? All right. So that should work, right?
It does for me. So.
See, that's the classic example of developers when we're working on code and it don't work in production, and they were like, "It don't work." I said, "Well, it work on my machine." It works on my machine. He was like, "Well, it ain't working in production. Something wrong." So, well, that ain't my problem. Nah, it is my problem. So there we go. So we know it all works. So we did the first part, A, B, and C. So that was simple, right? As you go back over, you're like, oh man, let me ask y'all this, just and y'all can be honest with me. Do y'all feel like, hey, I'm glad we kind of reviewed this again, even though I thought I know how to do it, but maybe there was some little bits and pieces and little nuances I did take into consideration and certain things I forgot. I'm glad we went over that. And is y'all cool with that?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. All right, so now let's do the next little part. And let's finish that, then we're going to go in part 2. All right, now let me see who we here. I'm not picking on you, reader, but you the next person I'm going to call up to read. I want you to read A for me and break it down to me. You there? Maybe she doesn't have her mic on. All right, cool. So let me see who we gonna get to do it. And Wesley, I didn't call on you yet. Go ahead and read A for me.
All right, let me switch over. I was taking notes on chapter 9. I just kind of sitting in here. So we're on, what was that, 1.2a?
Yep.
All right, so ask the user to answer a single quiz question. Look for to do 1.2a. Below the to do comment, define variables called question, correct answer, and candidate answer. Question should be initialized in the following string. Who was the first American woman in space? Correct answer should be initialized to Sally Ride. Candidate answer will initially be set to empty string.
Pretty easy, right? Pretty self-explanatory. So if I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, we're going to ask the user the question, ask the user to answer a single quiz question. So we look into 1.2a. We have these variables that we've already defined for you. So now you have to initialize them. So it says question should be initialized to the following string. So we see that word initialize right there, but up here we have initial on A. So now we change that word to initialize. So as a developer, you know that whenever we talking about initializing anything, we're knowing that, okay, we need to have some values added to it, expressions and stuff like that. So here we have the question right here. We have the question for American Woman in Space, which is Sally Ride. Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit all this stuff out. I guess I'm going to go ahead and have to go through this whole video and find all this stuff so I can blur all this stuff out. So the people that come down later don't see the answers. All right, so I did that. And then and the reason why I'm doing this, because we know this is self-explanatory. You guys get this part, right? This makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Now, let me actually tell y'all something else, another thing to look out for. Whenever we use empty string, you're rarely going to use empty strings, but from time to time, you will initialize a variable to an empty string. And the reason for that is because you're going to put something in it. If I'm going to do an empty array, which we're going to see I think in part 2, or empty object, or the number 0, can anybody explain to me, whenever you see that, what should that tell you?
I guess there's going to be user input.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, that there may be some user input, and you're going to be storing something there later. If it's a 0, why would I initialize a variable to 0?
Because you're going to loop over it, and I think in this one, you're looping over the questions down the road. So you're going to be telling it to add to that 0.
Well, it's similar, but it's more for a counter. So think of a scoreboard. So if both teams are going to start at 0, right? And every time they score, the counter it increments. So that's what it is. It's a counter, or maybe it's a stopwatch. Every time the state changes, a new number appears. So it's counting. It's a counter to go. And that's the thing with those. You're changing the state.
I was about to say, wouldn't you be setting it to an empty string just to, like, I guess, classify the variable as a string, so that way JavaScript knows that it's going to add in string input or not treat it like a number or something like that?
That's the problem with JavaScript. It's dynamic. You can change the variable.
Okay.
It's not strongly typed.
Okay, so you could set it to a string right now, and then down the road you could change it to a number. Okay, I got you.
That's what we did. We could change it to a number. It's not strict. Now, when we get into TypeScript, it is strict. When we get into TypeScript, learning how to make variables into certain types, so you can't change them arbitrarily. So we will learn that TypeScript later on, but right now we're at the beginning stages of understanding how programming works. But to answer your question long term, we will learn about types in JavaScript. Okay. So one of the things that I want to take it back to, and this is something that I want to introduce to you now, binary numbers. How many of you in here know binary numbers? Yeah, I know what they are.
I do. I mean, it's just base 2.
0 and 1s. That's all. And we create complex algorithms. Our machines can only read 0s and 1s. all of this code that we're writing right here inside of this text editor, the machine can't read it. It has to be compiled down to bytecode, zeros and ones. All of this stuff that we've written right here, all of this is going to be getting a pattern of zeros and ones. And what that means is that I want y'all to start understanding the pattern. This is why I want to introduce binary numbers to you right now.